Bicycle, written by Michael Spring. At first, he didn't realize that his bicycle was steering itself. He thought ruts in the road must be to blame, or perhaps his eyesight. But by the time he had unaccountably mounted the pavement, turning through 90 degrees to do it, he had begun to believe that his bicycle might have a mind of its own. On that occasion, he found himself swooping headlong towards a row of bicycle stands, crowded with stationary machines. He was on the floor painfully before he knew it. His bicycle was alongside him, his wheels spinning in the air, as if seeking some sort of attention. The next day, on his way to the shops, he crashed into a girl and man standing face to face to each other on the corner. As they gesticulated at each other, he and his bicycle swerved sharply and lunged right between them. He had just about enough time to shout out a warning. He saw the man's eyes wide. And then, bicycle, man, girl, and cyclist were on the pavement in a heap. Arms, legs, bruises. The man was angry, quite reasonably, and he had wanted to hit the cyclist, but for some reason he could not get up off the pavement. The girl stood gingerly and rearranged her summer dress. The cyclist crowded and crouched behind his bicycle, fearing repercussions. A crowd gathered. There were murmurings, curses, and shrieks. The girl, once she realized that the man was incapable of much other than speech, raised her fist in the air and started shouting at him and said some terrible things. The cyclist stood still between him. He stood with his bicycle stood still between him and the man on the pavement. A crowd, eventually the ambulance came and took the injured man away. "I can't thank you enough," said the girl once the crowd melted away. "What quick thinking! What decisive action to intervene like that! Most people would have just gone right by. But I do believe I was in quite some danger at the moment." She pushed her hair from her forehead, and just then the sun came up from behind the clouds. The cyclist, a tall man who had never had much luck with girls, was perplexed, although experiencing for the first time in several days a frisson of excitement. She smiled up at him, her shiny hair gently waving in the breeze, as though waiting for something. His bicycle made a small noise, a flicker of a chime, as though something within it had been released or wanted to be. He said, without quite knowing why, "Do you cycle at all?" The girl blushed. "I used to. I have a bike rather like yours, although I haven't used it in quite some time. I suppose I could have it put in order. The park on Sunday, perhaps? At around 3? I'd like to get back on the saddle again, and I'd feel safer with you." The cyclist would have to have a stiff word with his bicycle later that day. On his way home, following the accident, he had found himself, with no choice in the matter, rearing up when pulling away from the traffic lights, standing alarmingly on the front wheel whenever he needed to brake, a motionless quiver on the pedals as he waited for the traffic signal to change. He found it embarrassing. He nevertheless oiled his bicycle later that night, and when he did so, he found the bearings almost hot. Please, he said. What if you don't even like the girl's machine? What if she's in poor repair? Tires ineffectively inflated, uncared for, cables slack, rusty perhaps? His bicycle drank the oil. He carefully wiped the glow back into its paintwork. There was no reason to suspect otherwise, but on that Sunday, when he arrived at the park promptly at 3, she was already there, waiting expectantly under the chestnut trees, gazing up and down at the lines of intermittent traffic. When he waved, she stood on tiptoe, waving back and smiling, as though she were once again a 14-year-old girl who had just noticed, peeking behind the presents unquestionably destined for her, a brown package. This package, resting on what only could have been elegantly slim and dangerous wheels, and with handlebars bulging above, stood coyly behind a sofa. Her smile, as wide and beautiful then as it was now, showed that she had begun to appreciate her gift. Now she turned back quickly into the shade of the trees and then returned, pushing the bicycle she had been given 10 years earlier. A French blue racing model with a tan leather saddle, once more polished so the chromium and paint was shining brightly in the sunlight, mirroring the glow that seemed to surround her. The cyclist found himself accelerating towards her down the path, fearing once again an accident. But this time, he screeched to a halt in front of the girl, and the front tire of his bicycle coming to rest, touching lightly that of the girl's.